I have a question about video streaming. As Opera is adopting the video HTML tag, I'm interested about streaming because Adobe Flash has an RTMP protocol. It can stream video and it can pass control sequences to pause video or to rewind it back. And are there any ideas about similar things for Opera? Because Apple Safari has some preliminary and silly streaming, but it works. The iPhone has HTTP live streaming. Will Opera support anything?
So will we support streaming video and jumping to different places? Yes. We've done some of the work already.
Endless streaming.
Yes. We have done some of the work already. We are working. The technical problems have been solved 3 or 5 times in different video groups. So we're working in the W3C where they're standardizing video formats, including requirements like being able to jump through and seek a place in an endless stream.
And what protocols are used for it? OGG or Theora? Yeah, I know.
So we're working with Theora, yes,
and
OGG supports streaming. Basically.
You.
I have a little question about HTML5 interactivity technologies. As I know, Opera is first and the alone browser which supports server-sent events. What can you say about WebSockets technology? Because now it becomes very popular and different browsers start to support it. Thank you.
WebSockets, which is basically a more open network access, we will support that, I think. We like it. I don't know exactly when, because I don't know where we're up to. But, yeah, it enables a bunch of interesting use cases. And for us, in particular, we think it enables interesting use cases with Opera Unite, where you can actually have content doing cool stuff. So, yes, it has to come. And before you ask, we've already written the web workers code. We're in the process of landing it on our main branch. Down here, buddy.
Charles, you have mentioned about 20 or 30 standards, explicitly or implicitly. So I wonder about the success rate. How many of those things that you call standards are actually standards? And what are the problems in getting these documents into the face of standards?
Okay, so that's a sort of the summary question, and it's a really nice one. How many things are standards? I think SVG is now on the verge of being a real and genuine standard. The big thing is every browser implements it, right? And so that's taken, 14 years. The problems are several. You get problems of non-implementation. XHTML died because one browser didn't implement it, and that browser was important enough that meant no one could use it effectively. So as a standard, that's almost disappeared. That may or may not come back. More commonly, the problem is getting agreement on all of the little tiny things that have to be done right. HTML5 we've been working on for 5-6 years so far. CSS 2.1, the idea was in 1998 CSS2 was published. And almost immediately they said, oh wait, not everyone actually does this. So let's make CSS 2.1, which will be the things that people actually do. And that should be simple, right? You just find out what people do, you test it, you write it down, and you publish it. But it's not finished yet, because what people do changes. Finding out exactly what the specification means, that's the talk bit. Different people look at the same words and make different implementations. because they weren't written well enough, basically. It's not that one company or another company is filled with stupid engineers. Every company, every browser maker I go to is filled with really clever people. But they look at some text that was written, typically it's written by an engineer who's sort of pretending to be a technical writer in a standards group in part of their spare time. And typically, they're not writing stuff really clearly. So that's the other thing that's a really, really big problem. You get a standard that is not actually clear and doesn't really work interoperably. Some subset of that standard is the real standard. No one has ever completely implemented HTML4. No one has ever implemented HTML4. And yet, HTML4 is a very common and popular standard because for nearly all of it, you can use it on anything. So for nearly all of it, it works. So it's nearly all of it is the real standard. And the other problem you can get in standards is you create a solution before you look for the problem. Right? So there are specifications which people have written and said, this should be a standard. And people say, yeah, sure, it should be a standard. There should be peace in the Middle East, and I should have a new pony. But say, if people didn't want it, then it's not going to be a standard. So you have to actually make a standard. It has to be something that's relevant to what people are doing. And sometimes that means it can be something really stupid. There are bad ideas that can become standards because people like them. And then later they say, oh, wait a minute. Now that we've changed our mind, we're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. So there's a cost. The reason why standards people try to do architecture is to avoid settling for something that was a bad idea and that 5 or 10 years later they're going to have to fix at 100,000 times the cost of doing it right first time. But when you start to do that architecture, you start to get into guessing about where people are going to go. And when you guess what the future is going to be like, you do not always get it right.